Yo, what's up, guys? My name is Oliver Hayes alongside Harrison Simeon, and we are back for another episode of the Scope of SportsCast. Obviously, this looks a little different because we have two special guests. You guys want to introduce yourselves? Go ahead.
The coolest girl in town, self-proclaimed, just another buff beat writer that is reporting on this spectacular and somewhat underwhelming team, at least of recently. Yeah, I work for Rivals, and then I also work for Yahoo Sports, and I'm a CU alum and a Scope of Sports alum. So it's going to be back to my roots. It's like, I'm proud of all of you for upholding what I helped build.
Her name is Nikki Edwards, by the way.
Yes, it is.
I'm Troy Finnegan. I also work for Rivals CU Sports Report. New to the Buffs beat officially this year. I also was a Scope Buff Sports and the Bold alum, so I've been around the Buffs for a while, but officially on the beat this year for the first time. But yeah, thank you guys for having us on. Looking forward to talking some Buffs.
Yeah, and we did have the week off last week, and a lot has happened. So let's just jump right into it. Stanford, Colorado, we'll just go over that pretty quick. It's a rough one. What do you think was like the biggest thing that went wrong in that second half?
Tim Brewster said horrid this morning, which I felt like was a pretty fair way to describe it. They just got comfortable. I mean, they said it. They know what happened. They got comfortable. They just stopped executing really on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Losing guys in coverage. You know, they didn't stop the run as well in the second half. Losing guys in coverage. Obviously, the 97-yard touchdown, Cooper falls down. That's an unfortunate one. And then on offense, yeah, the protection kind of fell apart. They stopped running the ball. There was just offensively especially, I felt like they really lost their sense of urgency that they had in the first half. It kind of felt like they were content to just sit on the ball and there was no urgency, there was no pace, there was no like willingness to continue to extend the lead. And by the time they tried to get that back, it was like kind of like, oh crap, now we got to turn it back on. And that's a hard switch to flip once you flipped it off, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you summarized it pretty well. You hit a lot of talking points. It was ultimately complacency. I remember seeing videos on Twitter of Coach Prime. Of course, this wasn't like every snap, but there was a lot of tenseness on the sideline. Coach Prime was like yelling at Carter Stoutmeyer, and there was, a lot of frustration, and that ultimately they translated onto the field. That they were frustrated. They were not following their assignments. Of course, there was missed tackles, like just on both sides of the ball. You just really saw a absolute dismantling. And I really think I remember Coach Prime saying this after the press conference, what really did that for them, like what was kind of the nail in the coffin, was giving up that 97-yard touchdown from Elekeo Manor when Cooper missed that tackle and he just ran it in. Like, you cannot have plays like that. Like, it was just one thing after another, and it just all piled on where it fell apart in their faces. And even Shedeur said on that last play, he shouldn't have thrown the ball. He shouldn't have thrown the ball there. They still had another down. He could have done something else. I mean, it was maybe a bad play call under pressure. Like, we haven't like seen that side of him, and like, he still puts on his cape and usually saves games. And in that scenario, it was just like, it was unbelievable in ways, and you just see it on the gridiron, like how they just did it to themselves.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you guys said. And like, I don't know, I feel like the main thing that kind of like stuck out was you just mentioning how they sat on the ball. I feel like it happens in basketball more often than football, where teams tend to go out of their offense just to waste time, and then now all of a sudden they're trying to get things clicking again and whatnot. Because I mean that offense was clicking the first half. I mean, those touchdowns that they were scoring, like Xavier Weaver's second and third touchdowns were like the easiest two touchdowns of the year so far. But it was really weird just watching that game, because I mean, Coach Prime talked about. I mean, they've all talked about it, like you guys were saying. But he talked about how he felt like the complacency going into the half, and then it really just seemed in the second half like it kind of, when it rains it pours kind of thing. Especially looking at just some of the little things, like all those penalties, the defensive substitution mess ups that Coach Prime talked about, and just all that stuff just all came together in that second half, and it was just a complete just reversal of what we saw in the first half. It was just, I don't know, it was unlike anything I'd ever seen outside of like, I don't know, maybe like Patriots versus like the Falcons or something. Like it was such a detrimental like breakdown.
You had to sneak that one in. You had to sneak that one in there. Big
Yeah.
fan of Patriots Falcons. I do want to credit Stanford too, because they did tighten up after the half. They played a lot better up front on both sides of the ball, and for a team that had not thrown the ball with pretty much any success the entire season, I mean, they came out and they threw it all. The Buffs, you know, that you lose guys in man, you're chasing people across zones. They did not execute well in coverage, but it's still difficult to throw the ball that well against a really talented secondary, even as a team that had not thrown the ball well all year. So I did want to shout out Stanford. They played a very good half of football. It was a terrible collapse, but you know, there's two teams that have to both things have to happen. Stanford has to play great, and CU had to play awful for that to happen. So I did want to shout them out.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was they found the matchup to exploit with Aya Minor, like a really physical receiver. A lot of our corners aren't the most physical, especially in press coverage. And kind of those penalties started to pile up. The frustration started to mount, and it was just like a complete avalanche in the opposite direction. And I think them finding that matchup with Aya Minor on guys like Stoutmeyer, he had a real rough day.
Yeah.
Even Travis on the defensive side had played arguably his worst game of the year. Offensively, he was really productive and looked like he may have saved the game with his second touchdown catch, but on the defensive end, it just really, they couldn't stop anything. So I think that's the biggest thing was just the matchup they exploited and they found maybe going into the half, because Aya Minor didn't have a single catch, and then he ended up with 300 receiving yards at the end of the game.
And he only had 200 receiving yards
That's
coming
crazy.
into the game
Right.
in the whole season.
Yeah, no, that was absolutely wild because, I mean, and if I'm not mistaken, this was the best receiving performance of this whole college football season.
Yeah, it's at least, I don't know, I don't have the list
it's
off the
up
top of
there.
my
Yeah.
head, but it's definitely up there.
But yeah, no, I mean, that was just crazy. This is kind of more of like a personal question rather than the X's and O's and kind of like the things that we've been talking about. But I don't know. Obviously, you guys, you know, went to school here, graduated, been here the past few years, have seen all the struggles that CU has gone through, and to see them get to the peak that they kind of have gotten to so far this season, and then really just have everything coming crashing down, specifically, like, I don't know, when Aya Minor makes arguably the play of the year on Travis Hunter's head top. Like, I want to hear your whole perspective just regarding this game and maybe just the whole season in general.
Well, there's a hashtag on Twitter, #buff, you know what. We'll keep it cool for the kids over here. But yeah, that's it was, you know, we saw Kansas in 2009. I might have that year wrong. And then we saw Oregon State before McIntyre got fired. I mean, you know, it's it's obviously a different team. It's a different regime. It was a shocking thing to watch unfold, but it was kind of just especially by the point that you mentioned with the touchdown in overtime where Aya Minor caught it on the back of Travis's helmet. It was just man, here we go again. This is just, you know. But yeah, it's a good there's no bright side, but it could serve as a good wake-up call, I think, for the team and the program. Hey, you play so many, especially in the Pac-12 this year, you play so many teams with so much talent. You know, we play the Oregon, you play the USCs. We're going to have to play the Utahs, the Oregon States, the UCLA this week. We'll talk about in a little bit. But you can't just show up against the teams that don't have those kind of players. You can't just show up and go through the motions or play for a half, and you know that just. So I think it's a hard lesson, but I think it's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this team. That game was just so uncharacteristic of them in so many ways. You know, going into the season, I didn't, and a lot of people didn't expect them to beat TCU, the national runner-up, and
I did. I predicted it.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, one guy. I know this guy.
One
We'll
guy.
tally
The
that.
one
But
man
it
on
was
the
like
planet.
it was an
Nikki
interesting
and I did
matchup.
not.
Usually, week one, there are a lot of questions going into the season, and I didn't know what this team was going to look like. I didn't watch a lot of practice. There wasn't a lot of access there, but we knew it was a different team. At least we're talking about teams prior, like the roster turnover, everything, X, Y, and Z that happened in the offseason. And they set the bar so high for themselves in that game. Like this kind of set them on the like national ranked. You know, they got ranked later, and there was such a high bar for them. And what we saw in Shedeur, like we saw a capable quarterback that CU hasn't had in years, that hasn't had any red flags, that could actually score touchdowns, which is what CU Buffs fans ultimately needed. And it's been interesting to see kind of the crux of this team in every matchup. And you look at a team, even in Arizona State, there were a lot of concerns there, and the run game and the pass game. Like Arizona State is a pretty good, you know, they're like a gritty team. Like they fight. Like you have to fight for Kenny Dillingham. Like it's Kenny Dillingham, but there was a lot of problems in that game. They weren't throwing the ball as well. Like each game shows one of their weaknesses, and I feel like teams have been able to scout that and pinpoint that, and ultimately, it is a trench problem. Shedeur should not be getting sacked this much. And, well, Stanford was just like, you shouldn't be giving up losses like that. Like, no way. Like, that was just so mind-boggling in so many ways. But, I mean, looking ahead for the rest of the season, like, it's kind of I know they're going to win another game, but if you're capable of just falling apart like that against one of the worst teams in the Pac-12, that is just the ultimate concern. And, you know, coaches can tell you, like, oh, we had a good practice, we talked about this and we talked about that, and like they you know, they're all football experts, like they know what they're doing wrong, but it's just not being translated on the field and on game day, and there's just like one slip and there goes a score or something, you know, negative happening. So it's a culmination of things for this team. They are much better than years past, and like this is like the most exciting time for CU football. But seeing things like that, you know, it's just the Stanford game is unacceptable.
It's a good reminder too. Rome wasn't built in a day. Like they're 7 games into this new regime with so many new players. This just such a like that's complete roster turnover. I feel like I don't want to say they bit off more than they could chew the first 2 weeks of the year, but by playing that well, that the expectations reached like higher than I think they probably realistically should have been the whole time, which is rightfully so. They looked great the first couple of weeks, but it was unrealistic to expect that level to continue. And, you know, just to put it in perspective of where they are in this new era, they're not in there's going to be growing pains. There's going to be lessons that need to be learned. And that, you know, last Friday, a couple weekends ago, was one of them.
Yeah, I thought that was, I don't know, I think that's a great point that like you guys bring up is like, just how they set the expectations so high because, I don't know, like, yeah, we're all journalists. We're all reporting in an unbiased manner. But, I mean, I don't know. Me and Harrison still go here. You guys, I don't know, you graduated last year. You graduated 2 years ago. So, I mean, you're still definitely, there's still that part of you that wants CU to win and all that stuff. And so, like, I don't know, you bring up that ASU win and how, like, there were problems and stuff. But, like, I don't know, for CU fans, just beating ASU, I'm like, oh my God! Like, let's go. We beat ASU because I can just remember thinking back to last year, sitting at the back of the end zone with the camera, being like, "Oh my God! I can't believe the 10 fans that are left in the student section are throwing beer cans at me. Like, like this is ridiculous." So yeah, no, I 100% agree with your points. And just with the expectations and in the Rome comparison, that all makes sense. So.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is. The Nebraska game set the bar so high because it was like, you know, Nebraska, it's our biggest rival home opener. We go out there and just kick their tails, and that got us as high as we could, as high as we've been ranked all year, and kind of held those expectations for the next few weeks. But even the wins that we had were ugly. Like, you know, we didn't expect Colorado State to go to double OT or. You know, even with Arizona State after the 2 losses, maybe we didn't expect to go down to last play. So I think managing the expectations and it's been a little bit of a struggle to kind of shake off the old demons of years past. Even, with so few of those players remaining, going to the game at just like, I didn't even cover the last few games at home as media. At this last one, I just went with my girlfriend as a fan. So going to that and being in like the nosebleeds with all the fans that have seen this team grow, it was hard for them to kind of forget, like you mentioned, Oregon State, they brought up that a bunch of times. Even when we were still up 29-0, people were like, oh, and then the momentum started going the other way. People were like, oh, this is the same old team. Here we go. This is not looking good. And it didn't. I mean, it was really kind of a disgraceful loss in every capacity, but you can't, you have to have a certain level of perspective of how far this team's come from being pretty irrelevant overall, even when there would be good seasons, to now being in the national spotlight and with years and years of reinforcements with such a good culture established by Prime.
They've unfortunately been unable to replicate whatever magic dust made Jeff Sims unable to catch a shotgun snap. That has not been repeated.
Yeah.
Well, the magic dust has shown up in weird ways. Still yet to have lost a coin toss. And then until last game, I believe that was the fourth quarter field goal to tie the game was the first field goal made at Folsom by an opponent this year.
Yeah,
so,
that's pretty wild.
So, I mean, some crazy things going on. This is definitely, obviously, a very unique year. I mean,
we're getting a little bit of everything. We're getting the sadness. We're getting the excitement. It's like, I think, it's just like you said, managing those expectations, because like we started the season on like such a high with like big noon kickoff and like game day and just like all The Rock. Like I tried to give The Rock a high five and I was just standing there like this and he didn't see me. And I was just like, we're around all these people that don't come to, just a quaint little mountain town, Boulder, Colorado. And now it's like kind of dropped off a bit in that, and in terms of play on the field and just, I think, people coming to the games and stuff. I mean, even at home games too, we still see a lot of like celebrities, and this is just completely out of the ordinary from what it was last year. So it's disappointing, like that game against Stanford, and we knew that losses were going to come this season, but Stanford was always one that you like checked off the list. You're like, no way they're losing this against Troy Taylor. But that was a completely different result.
yeah.
They lied to me about LeBron coming, though.
They did.
LeBron!
That was rough. And
LeBron, come to Boulder. It's the place to be.
LeBron's totally going to see
LeBron,
that.
Jay-Z, DJ Khaled.
Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, that was all a lie.
Okay.
I full-heartedly believe that really sold the bag with our scheduling, with LeBron being in Denver this week.
Yeah, what are we doing?
But I don't know. Anyways, no,
he could have brought AD with him. We'd get a second half shutout.
But yeah, no, the celebrity culture has just been crazy. I mean, like, I don't know. For me personally, like, I don't know. I already established that, like, yeah, I'm a Boston fan. Done that multiple times, but throughout like this podcast and this episode, but like, I never could have imagined that. Like, if you told me that, like, in my sophomore year, I'd be standing at a CU football game next to Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, like, I would have looked at you like stupid. Like, it's just
crazy. It's
unbelievable. Because, I mean, yeah, Paul Pierce is like, I don't know, he was my first favorite player. Like,
the truth.
It's like, yeah, that's your, I don't know. I mean,
anything is possible. KG.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, it's just, I don't know. I'm struggling for words because it's just like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm just speechless. Like, I don't know. This whole thing is just wild. But going back to the game a little bit, I wanted to touch more on Travis Hunter just with his return. His great play on offense, but then very uncharacteristic play on defense, at least compared to what he's shown earlier this season. I want to know what you guys thought about his return from injury, but also, I don't know, maybe how he played after taking that hit on his second touchdown and kind of just his whole overall performance.
Yeah, it's tough. On offense, he was excellent, and you can see the chemistry that he has with Shadur as kind of a safety blanket. There's a reason. I mean, his target numbers are through the roof on the year for how many games that he's missed. So you can see that Shadur looks to him. Shadur really they really know each other really well, and that comes from they played together at Jackson State, obviously. Defensively, it was kind of jarring to see somebody beat him consistently like that throughout the second half, because it's just not something you see against a corner of his caliber. And no disrespect to Alec Iomanner, but this was no Marvin Harrison Jr. over there. It was like I said earlier, he came into the game with 200 yards on the season and then put up almost 3 bills. But as a corner, it's you're going to lose reps, and he lost more than usual. Like the 60-yard touchdown, the slot, he's in a tough spot, slot fade to the field, and he just didn't find the ball. Was a little underthrown, and he just didn't find the ball. The coverage was not terrible, but he didn't find the ball. Iomanner comes back to it, and then Travis misses the tackle, and he's out. And then the overtime touchdown is the one that, is clipped on Twitter and all the memes, and everyone's laughing at CU, laughing at Travis Hunter. But it's good coverage. It was sometimes the guy, there's a saying in basketball that good offense beats good defense. Sometimes the guy makes a play. You got to tip your cap to him. So I'm not concerned in any way about Travis Hunter as a corner or Travis Hunter on defense or any of that. He had a rough night. It was his first game back, and he missed 2 weeks, and it happens to corners. You got to have a short memory, turn it around, and so rough night. But I'm still confident in him as a number 1 corner moving forward. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's pretty resilient. Like, I would agree with everything that Troy said. It's undeniable what him and Shedeur can do on the field together, and corner's a hard position. A fun fact from, Mr. Captain Crunch over here. But, it's, like Troy said, like there was a lot of surprising plays from Stanford's side, but in Travis's defense, like there were just some miscues there on a lot of coverages and stuff like that. So, no, he has such a high football IQ. I'm not worried about them going forward, and like I think he's capable of having another TCU game or any of his games this season, because he is truly that good. But I think it was a culmination of like everything that was going on in that game, and just Travis was a little bit more or less unfortunate on defense, but just entirely the secondary was like running all over the place.
Yeah, and I think it's also, I don't know, when I asked that question, like, I asked that as if he's like a normal player. I think, I don't know, I asked it with like kind of forgetting that this man is playing 2 positions at the same time, playing both sides of the ball. Like, that's, I don't know, that's obviously
it's rare. You
crazy.
don't find that very often.
What do you guys think about, I'm taking over as host for
I'd love
5 seconds. What do you guys think about his workload? Because there's been a lot of discourse about that. Is it sustainable for him to play 100 snaps, 110 snaps a game, and being a number 1? And because it's not like he's just out there on offense running routes. I mean, they target him 15 times a game. Like, he's a number 1 receiver and a number 1 corner. What do you guys think? Do you think that that's sustainable? Is that something that concerns you when you see a game like Stanford where he wasn't like visibly fatigued or anything in the second half, but when his performance on defense, when he struggles so much towards the end of a game like that on defense, what's your guys' take on that, genuinely?
I'll let you go first.
Well, yeah, I think while he was out, there was kind of a thought that he could be limited and have more of the snaps on the defensive end because of how our receiving core has been able to hold up. We've had Xavier Weaver in the Biletnikoff Award talks. Jimmy Horns, obviously, he's been a little inconsistent, but he's still been pretty solid as a slot receiver. Javon Antonio was able to step up for a game. Omarion Miller stepped up for a game in a big way, and we haven't really seen him since. And we've had Edwards that's had done a lot of work in the passing game. So at first I was kind of having the thought that when they would bring him back, he'd be playing like, I don't know, 70% or 100% of his corner reps and maybe like 70 to 60% of his receiver reps. But they just went back with him full speed. Even, I really applauded, how his desire to get back on the field, because Prime didn't want him back until after the bye. And he was able to come back a little earlier than maybe the coach would have wanted him to be. And he did struggle on defense, but he played as much as he would in a normal game. They didn't hold back. And now I feel like because of his role as kind of a safety blanket for Shedeur, he can 100% stay on offense all the time. Though on defense, I think it would be kind of more about personnel because of how much the corners have struggled. You had Stoutmeyer starting. He's kind of struggled. Cooper, we saw him on and off all game against Stanford. Same with Cormani. So I think it'll just depend on the personnel and maybe more shifting out of different corners and maybe not full speed on defense. Full speed on offense, I'm not worried about. He looked great. He looked like himself. He was spinning off players and scoring like it was nothing. But for me, I think I trust him more on the offensive end, at least until he's 110% healthy again, rather than playing a much tougher position at corner. So, yeah, that's just my perspective.
Yeah, I like that answer because it addresses more of the short term. Because, I don't know, I was thinking more in the long-term aspect. I don't know, this kind of seems more of a college thing, I guess. I don't necessarily...
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's not going to be playing both sides in the NFL.
Yeah, so it's I don't know. I think this is his... What he's been able to do is just a culmination of kind of a perfect storm, I feel like, specifically with having Deion Sanders at head coach who, I don't know, played both sides of the ball a little bit himself. But also, I don't know, everyone knows who Deion Sanders is. He's flashy. He's not willing to, or he's not afraid to do things in an unorthodox way, as he's shown in his time in Boulder, but throughout his career and his life and stuff, and just as a person. And so I think just having, I don't know, Coach Prime, who's allowing Travis to do that, I think that is really helpful for him being able to kind of just I don't know, embrace that. Just kind of, I don't know, embrace this freedom to kind of do whatever. But yeah, I think I do. This is just such a hard question to answer because, like you said, he's the number one on both sides. He's wide receiver one, but he's also cornerback one, and so I do. I don't know. I find it so incredibly hard to answer this question because he's needed so much on the defensive side of the ball. But when you have him on the offensive side of the ball, he's gonna put up stats, he's gonna put up numbers. But I feel like one of his most underrated quality is how much he's able to open up the offense for the other receivers. If you're having Xavier Weaver as your wide receiver too, I'm sorry, but that's just that's very hard to guard. That is very hard to guard. And then Jimmy Horn Jr. at wide receiver 3. That is having him on the offensive side of things really just opens up the offense. And so I feel like that's where I don't know, but it's hard because I don't know. I'm just kind of lost, bro. Head's just doing circles because I don't know. He just impacts the game in every type of way, and so it's I don't know. I feel like if I had the offense to me is what seems to be struggling to stay consistent, and so I feel like if I had to go one way or the other, I'd rather see Travis more on offense, just because I feel like throughout watching when he's been on the field outside of the Stanford game and maybe a little bit of that first half of that Nebraska game, it seems like when he's on the field, Colorado is able to operate their offense correctly. But it wasn't until, I don't know, it's also hard to tell because he was playing versus when Colorado was playing some of those weaker opponents. He wasn't playing, obviously, against Oregon, USC. But I don't know, the offense struggled a little bit more as far as being consistent and keeping that consistent flow. So if I had to choose, even though it's so insanely hard, I'd rather see his production on the offensive side of the ball, just because defense, he's a great defender as we've mentioned, but I don't think he can necessarily change the defense, especially if he's still coming back from injury, taking some of the hits that he's taking on offense, getting as many targets as he is on offense. There's just too much for him to be able to make as big of an impact that he is on offense on defense, if that'll make sense.
Yeah, I don't think it has to be an exclusive thing either. I think it's something to monitor in the sense of hey, Xavier Weaver's really going. We like Jimmy in the slot. Can we give Travis a series here off on offense? Hey, Cormani's playing well and Cooper's playing well. Or Cooper's playing well on one side. We want to get the young guys some reps on the other side. Can we give Travis a series here on defense? Can we cut that 115, 120 snaps? Can we cut it to 90 snaps? Can we cut it to 85, 90 snaps? He's still going to play both ways. Obviously, he changed the offense. I'm going to push back also on you said about him changing the defense. I think he does change the defense because he is the type of guy if he's fresh and he's ready to go, he can take out a whole side of the field, and like you can man him up on the backside, and he can erase half the field for your defense. So I still think that he's. I know you didn't say he's not valuable on defense. I'm not trying to say that, but
Yeah.
I do see that. So I'm not saying like, oh, he needs to stop playing offense. He needs to stop playing defense because he's too valuable to both units to not have out there. But how can they cut it, as I said, how can they cut it to 90 snaps, 95 snaps instead of 120 snaps? So in the fourth quarter, in double overtime, which we're apparently going to go to all the time this year.
Yeah, 8 p.m. kick coming up.
Yeah. How can we, every 8 p.m. kick will be in double overtime, catch us at midnight. How can we keep him fresh so that he can be his peak self in the critical moments of the game?
Yeah, because like now that I think about it, I think my answer was very biased due to this last game and how he did overperform, or not overperform, but he performed much better on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Because like I don't know, you look at that TCU game, he was great on both sides of the ball. But that Nebraska game, he kind of slowed down a little bit on the offensive side of things, and yeah, like you said, he wasn't getting a target. There wasn't a target on his side of the field. So I think your answer definitely to that question is kind of the way to go about things, and kind of just playing it by ear and just seeing how the team's doing overall, but also how his impact is being felt. Because I don't know. I feel like it's just so hard to consistently be the best player on the field at all 100%. Times. Like that is 100%. Just an unrealistic ask, and almost kind of goes back to, I don't know, we were talking about in the grand scheme of things, and kind of how he almost set the expectation so high. When you see him playing against TCU and he's putting up the numbers that he's doing that he put up on the offensive side of the ball, and you see down the stretch, Shedeur can kind of just throw the ball up to him, and he can go up and make a ridiculous catch on 3rd and 16 or whatever it is to save the game. And you can also think back to when TCU's on the goal line and he has that amazing diving interception. You're like, wow, this dude is literally Superman. And it's not that he has fallen off. It's just that like, I don't know. Yeah, I think just, I don't know, that high expectation problem is kind of, I don't know, that can kind of fit the theme of the season a little bit, just because, I don't know, even on the walk over to practice today, I was like, I don't know, there wasn't as much media, there wasn't like as much hype and whatnot, and it is colder and things kind of cool off a little bit, but I was really just like thinking about that TCU game, being just like, that was just like the craziest experience. Like I don't know. I know that people are always like, oh yeah, this game is this people's Super Bowl, their national championship, or their playoff game, whatever, across all sports. But like that one genuinely did feel as high stakes as some of like the biggest games I've ever watched in my whole life. And so I don't know. Kind of going off topic, but
do you think Travis could have stopped Caleb Williams?
I mean, he definitely would have played a part. I mean, like I said, on the offensive side of things, I feel like the offense would have gotten going a little bit faster in that USC game. I mean, like it obviously would have, because I mean, Travis Hunter, having him no matter what, he would get targets, he'd make some plays on the offensive side of the ball. But as I mentioned, I like the amount of attention he gets, because it allows Xavier Weaver and Jimmy Horn Jr.'s and all those other talented guys to go in single coverage and all those other things, and it's in football. I mean, and this happens in every sport, but like it's just interesting in seeing the different amount of layers that CU can add to their offense. Like when Shedeur is able to use his legs well, the offense is that much better, because that's another thing the defense is able to worry about. When Dylan Edwards was being a threat in the passing game so much in the TCU game, that created the deep ball downfield. And so it's, I don't know, it's football, and so it's hard to say like Travis Hunter specifically is changing the game. Like I don't know. That's just a very loaded question because how can you answer a question when you've never really seen this scenario before?
And the Buffs have the worst defense, one of the worst defenses in the country right now.
True. So it's like I don't know. It's kind of picking your poison. Do you want to buff up what is your best and just okay, like we're gonna have 1 million points. Let's try and outscore this team, or do we? I don't know. Yeah, like you said, this is one of the worst defenses in the nation. Do we just try and help out a little bit just to take the edge off? I don't know. It's a hard question, and I guess we'll see this weekend and going forward. So I'd love to
one more thing on Travis's usage. He's not. This is super nitpicky, but he's not. He's not a skinny. He's not slight. He's well built, but he's not physically overwhelming. And for a guy he's athletically overwhelming. He's a phenom athletically, but he's not physically overwhelming in the sense that, hey, can he play 110 snaps a game when on offense he runs so many routes over the middle of the field especially. He's going to go over the middle of the field. I mean, we've seen him get laid out a couple of times. He takes big hits over the middle. Obviously, the CSU one, he gets hit big, but his second touchdown, he gets crushed in the end zone. Can a guy... That's just hard to sustain for somebody who is not like one of these receivers who's like 6'3", 220. You know, that's because that's not how he is. He's not... I keep using the same phrase, but he's not physically overwhelming in that sense.
Yeah.
Like he is athletically.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to touch on, and ultimately, like, I don't know, just the topic of Travis Hunter, you can just go on for hours and hours and hours. Obviously, I don't know, we're having this question because there's just so much to talk about, and like, yeah, I don't know, like I said, we go on for hours and hours. But I'd love to jump into this UCLA game a little bit, touch on some basketball. So yeah, let's move ahead a little bit. I don't know, Harrison, do you want to jump into the preview a tiny bit?
Sure. About UCLA?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's going to be definitely kind of a game that's won and lost on the line of scrimmage. Like, if we have a game like we did against Oregon in terms of our matchup against their lines, it's going to be a really, really long day.
Really long day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're a team that runs the ball. They have over 200 rushing yards a game. They're top 5 in, you said pressure rate earlier?
Defensive line pressures, which is especially important because they're not sending extra guys to get pressure. Like, they will rush 3, they will rush 4, and they get pressure on opposing teams, which is huge, especially against a Buffs team that has not been very successful up front against those looks.
Right, and then you have something that I guess is promising. You had the third string right tackle play last game. I can't say he did terribly, but you do have Savion Washington coming back this week. He was practicing.
That'll be huge.
And Coach Prime said he was there, so that'll be important. I think looking for the offensive line to really work more as a unit. There was some improvement I saw, especially in the first half when things were clicking on the offensive line. And that kind of was able to help the run game early. It was able to help the short passing game and you know, everything. Like everything has to start at the offensive line. So I think that the offensive line is going to be extremely important to get pressure on whoever the quarterback for UCLA is, because there's no starter announced as of now. But to get pressure on whoever is starting back there to just disrupt things, to try to just be as disruptful as possible, just to not make this game, not let UCLA have what they want, because they played Stanford the week after us and they had whatever they wanted. They blew the doors off of them 42-7. So their 2 losses and their only 2 losses on the year have come against really top tier teams like Utah, like Oregon State, and so it's going to be really, really tough in terms of a coaching matchup as well, because, you know, even with the lack of quarterback announcement, Coach Prime said that the biggest thing to prepare for is their coach, and he has a lot of respect for Chip Kelly. So I think the biggest thing is line play, Offensive consistency, I think just maintaining the level that we saw in that first half is going to be a lot trickier against this defense. But with Travis back and healthy, and assumedly healthier than he was against Stanford with 2 weeks to rest, I think the offense could perform well. It's just going to be about my biggest, or my third big key is just to disrupt things defensively, not let them have whatever they want on the ground, because you're going to see a lot of runs, a lot of RPOs, and just not falling apart in the secondary either, because they can work the pass off the run and just eat you up through the air as well. So it's going to be a tough game, but if all those things go well for us, I think we definitely have a shot.
I think they're going to get ran over. I'm just like, if you're going up against a front similar to Oregon, they allowed 7 sacks that game. And it's gotten better. 3 sacks against USC, 5 against ASU, still kind of a lot. 4 against Stanford. I mean, sure is going to get hit a lot. And I think, Savion Washington does help that depth piece and like performance piece. But throughout this season, this offensive line has not given me any confidence that, it is getting better. There are better games, but with Shedeur being the most sacked quarterback in college football right now, like that is unacceptable, and they're not going to be able to keep that tempo that they love so much when they're getting hit so much. So yeah, I guess that is going to be a big key, is to disrupt things defensively if their quarterback is questionable. And I just think Leah, how do you say his name? Leah Latu. Yeah, this guy is leading. He has 10.5 sacks this season. He's been such a force. I believe he's on the first team defense in the Pac-12. There's a reason why they are so effective up front, and it's because of him. So I think kind of focusing in on this guy and how you can minimize him in any degree. But from what I've seen in like kind of personnel matchups, they do have those key guys that do get through most often than not with CU's offensive line. So I think this game will be a big step for them, see if like the bye week did anything. But it's been a consistent problem. Like the trenches for this team have just been so underwhelming on both sides of the ball, and that's why they're bringing like Shane Cokes on offense and Bishop Thomas on offense sometimes, because they can block better. And sometimes that does happen, but it's not often you bring your defensive lineman on the offensive line so you can help them block. Right. It's just it's depth problems that are really hurting this team right now. And when you're looking at a team like UCLA, it's just in just those matchups, I don't have a lot of confidence. Hopefully they can just get Shedeur can do what he does best and just get his ball to his receivers wherever he can and get the ball out faster, and just the pocket's going to be collapsing on a lot of those plays. So just assessing those matchups and seeing where he can capitalize there. But it's gonna be tough. They're gonna have to prove a lot in this game.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know. We talk about the what's going to happen on the field, but you brought up Deion Sanders' comments on Chip Kelly, and I really feel like that's like the biggest thing, because it's just, I don't know, like we mentioned earlier, you're not like Rome wasn't built in 1 year, and so to have a loss like you did against Stanford, to have the inconsistencies that you've had this year, and to have some of the defensive penalties that have added up, the special teams play not being as good, there's just, it's not necessarily like a culture thing, but just tightening up those loose screws in the very little time that Colorado's had. And so I think going up against a coach like Chip Kelly and going up against this program that not only has a culture, but so far this season, I mean, just looking at their schedule, they've handled all the bad teams that they were supposed to beat. Not only did they beat them, but they beat them badly. Of their wins, their closest win margin, I mean, not computer, but their closest win margin was 8 points against ranked Washington State. After that, it was then 14 and then 15, and then I don't know. That next margin is too big for me to do that quick math. But then you look at their losses to number 11 Utah and the number 15 Oregon State. They lost to Utah by 7. They lost to Oregon State by 12. Those are even though Oregon State kind of held business, I don't know. There's still close games, and I really think it's just, I don't know. Like you said, I think they're kind of going to get run over, not because of just what all is going to happen on the field and the players and the depth and the personnel matchups, but just from the, I don't know, how well run UCLA's program is, how they stick to the fundamentals, how they have this whole regime that they need to follow, it seems like, and they do things. Not to say that they do things the right way and Colorado doesn't, but it seems that they've kind of built that, like, they've built what they want and they can follow.
Consistency.
Yeah, consistency. That's the good word. So, yeah, that's my biggest take on things.
Yeah, I think going back to the game, I mean, I just think that the Buffs need to win. This is super duh analysis, but I'm getting somewhere with it. Trust. They need to win in the areas that they got to do what they do best, because the obvious key is, can the line hold up every week? Can the line hold up? Can the line hold up? Guess what? It's not happening this week. It's not happening. This is the best front in the Pac-12. Top 10 in sacks. Harrison mentioned top 5 in D-line pressures. CU's line has allowed pressures. I don't know the exact pressure numbers from the Stanford game, but through 6 games, Shadur had been pressured 114 times. 19 pressures per game. And UCLA is number 1 against the run as well. They're giving up just a tick over 2 yards a carry. They're giving up less than 70 yards a game, and that's with 2 teams, Utah and Oregon State, who run the football really, really, really well. So I can't imagine CU's going to have an easy time, running the ball. Can the talented receivers on the outside, can you, one, win on quick game, because CU's going to go to a lot of quick game, a lot of screens, I would imagine, trying to mitigate the pass rush. Can those guys, can you throw a screen out there? Can Travis Hunter break 2 tackles and get chunk gains? That's where CU's talent lies. And you've got to win one-on-one matchups on the outside. And then on defense, that's not going to be like it was against TCU or like it was against a USC defense that is not very good. They're not going to be able to win a 42-40 game this weekend. Can the defense get UCLA into 3rd and longs? Can you get them? If Dante Moore, the young freshman, super talented freshman quarterback, but if he's the quarterback for UCLA, he's given the ball away a ton this year. He only played 1 garbage time series last week, but coming into that game, he had 3 consecutive games with a pick 6. He threw 3 picks in their game 2 weeks ago. I'm totally blanking on who they played. Oregon State, I believe, was 2 weeks ago.
He has 7 interceptions on the year.
Yeah, and he's a very talented freshman. He's got a ton of ability, but he's, you're starting an 18, 19-year-old in the Pac-12, the best football conference in the country this season, in my opinion. It's a tough adjustment for him. So a CU defense that has generated takeaways this year at a pretty good rate has fallen off a little bit over the last couple of weeks, but if Moore is in there, can you take the ball away? Can you give your offense short fields? Can you put them in good situations? And then you got to stop shooting yourself in the foot. Deion Sanders touched yesterday on the penalties, and you mentioned the penalties against Stanford, which it was a bad problem getting worse. It was ridiculous. I think it was 4 times. They had 12 men on the field.
Yeah, it was something like that.
You had Travis Hunter, personal foul on 4th and 22 that extended a drive. That cost him 4 points. Can you eliminate the self-inflicted wounds? You get pass interference, holding, that stuff happens. Can you eliminate unsportsmanlike conduct? Can you eliminate substitution penalties? Can you eliminate procedure penalties pre-snap? Can we get guys lined up in the right spot? Can we not jump early on offense? Those are the things that, especially against a pass rush like UCLA's, 1st and 20 is not it's not going to work. It's not happening. If you get if you get behind the sticks, I mean, the pass rushers, they're just going to pin their ears back and they're going to come after Shadur and they're going to tee off. So it's going to see that they're going to have to play a very disciplined game, and you're going to need the guys on the outside to make some big plays.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't know, like my answers earlier, I 100% agree with that. And yeah, I don't know. In every aspect, the CU Buffalo's team needs to tighten up. Offense, defense, and I don't know.
Special teams,
yeah. Like, I was about to say that, like, the special teams has been the most faulty thing so far, and we haven't even talked about them yet. Like, so in just every aspect, CU just I think that would be the biggest thing for me in my eyes, specifically like with how much I talked about it in my answer. But just about like I want them to be a football team where you're watching them and you're like, yeah, they're doing everything correctly, and yeah, limiting those penalties. I don't know. We talked about this before the podcast, but like it seemed like Mikey Harrison ran into Travis Hunter.
Yes.
On
he did.
I forget which play exactly it was.
It was the
last play.
The last interception that Shedeur threw against Stanford.
Okay. Yeah.
It was 3rd and goal, and they ran mesh. They ran 2 crossers, and Mikey Harrison and Travis Hunter ran into each other, and it blew up the play.
Yeah, and so there's like that one. We mentioned Marion Cooper missing that tackle on the 97-yard touchdown, and that's just stuff from like the Stanford game. You can go back to prior games where like I don't know, it was like USC where the special teams was awful. Had missed a field goal, had a punt blocked, finally got some momentum. There was a false start that pushed us back to 1st and 20, and then we were unable to capitalize when momentum was finally in our way. There was a 3rd and long where Caleb Williams threw a horrible ball that was picked off by Cormani McLean because it was triple coverage, but there was defensive pass interference that didn't need to happen at all. And so it's just clean up on all those little things. And I just want to, just be like, okay, like, yeah, sure, maybe they didn't lose. Maybe there was a few things here and there that, like, they just got outplayed. But I'd rather have them get outplayed than shoot themselves in the foot like you brought up.
The teams you play in this league are too good to play against yourself at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. But that's all the thoughts we have on UCLA. I would love to jump into both men's and women's basketball with their exhibition games. Coming this Saturday, Media Day last Tuesday.
During the Buffs football game, shout out schedulers. Terrible job.
Oh, my God.
But yeah, so I don't know. Where do we want to start?
Tristan Silva's going to be a freaking dog this year. I'm so excited to watch him. They needed him to be successful this year. Like he was their best shooter last year. KJ Simpson, of course, was there. He was there last year. He's going to be there this year. But they needed Tristan Silva to really solidify themselves as like a actual potential Pac-12 championship contender. They needed that offense. They needed that defense. They needed that solidified veteran experience to really carry them throughout the season. He's so locked in. He's so confident, and he's just going to be great to watch. I think this unit that they have a lot of depth and versatility. We got to watch Eddie Lampkin more and see how he integrates himself. He's dealing with his back issue, and I hope that doesn't trickle in because like back stuff can be really tricky.
Especially for those big guys.
Yeah. So hopefully that gets all healed up and healthy and can really like find his footing here and like be that dominant 20-point, 14 rebound player that he showed during the NCAA tournament a couple years back, because he has that within him, and they just needed that size. And there's so many good pieces here with like what Julian Hammond showed last year, Luke's rebounding, and just getting like Javon Hadley back. Health, of course, is like the most fragile thing in basketball, and I think we saw that firsthand. I think it was one thing dealing with their inconsistencies and grappling with these great wins of Tennessee and then losing to Grambling State. Those hurt tad. I mean, the Tennessee one was amazing. It's just like there's so many memorable moments throughout last season where you're like, this team can be really, really awesome. And then you saw games like the Cal game where it's like they're so close. Like basketball's a fragile sport, but I think they have all the pieces necessary to really get back to a consistent offense, a consistent defense, and just be, one of those great contenders. Just remember Jaime Jaquez at UCLA. I don't really know what Arizona's looking like this year, but I think they're at least able to beat out Oregon in the standings this year.
Yeah, I believe in the media poll, Arizona topped the media poll, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, no, I mean, it'll be interesting this year. But yeah, I agree with Tristan Silva take, and I don't know. I'm just as excited as everyone else is about Cody Williams and Eddie Lampkin and the recruiting class, transfer class, and all the guys coming in. But I'm very excited about the returners because I feel like that's really one of the biggest things in college basketball is having those guys who have been there and played. Because yeah, it's great to have those one and dones, those high recruits, but as we all know, I don't know, it's a different game. Like you brought this up in football. But when you're having an 18, 19-year-old out there who's supposed to be one of your best players, that's different than, having Tristan Silva, who's going to be, I don't know what his exact age is, but, he's a senior this year. That's a lot different if he's our best player leading the charge versus some of these other teams where, like, USC, like, their best player might be a freshman, Isaiah Collier. It's very interesting in seeing that aspect, and so I'm excited to see how the experience from last year with the returners and kind of these almost like veteran players for college coming back. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a good mix. I love the thought of just the flexibility that I think they're going to have, the different things that they're going to be able to do, especially defensively. I think that this team has a chance to really be able to defend their you-know-what off. Can they play against a team like USC? Can they play smaller, more switchable lineups? I know with Eddie out of practice the last couple of weeks, they've been tinkering with some lineups with Tristan and Luke as the two bigs, and that lineup is just going to be so switchable, and you'll be able to put length on the floor. You'll be able to put so much versatility on the floor. Like, let's say a Tristan, Luke, Cody Williams, Javon Hadley, and KJ Simpson lineup. That lineup could be awesome defensively. But then you're going to run into the top teams in the Pac-12. The top three teams, arguably, in the Pac-12, other than CU right now, you're going to run into really talented bigs. And I think that's where a guy like Eddie Lampkin or even a guy like maybe a Joe Hurlburt can come in and steal some minutes. You've got Oregon's going to have N'Faly Dante coming back. Arizona's got Umar Ballo coming back. UCLA's got Adam Bona coming back. Those are three really talented bigs, and arguably three of the best bigs in the Pac-12. And those are the teams that you're competing with for, obviously you want the top 4 seeds, so you get the double bye in the Pac-12 tournament. But I'm really excited about being able to switch. You can throw Eddie in. He can come up, play at the level. He can play in some drop. It's just a lot of different things that they can do. Tad tinkered with a lot of 2-3 zone in the black and gold scrimmage. There was a lineup of, in a 2-3 zone, they were trapping out of this 2-3 zone. They had, who was on the court? It was Tristan. It was Luke. Asan Jop was in there. I can't remember. It was they had 5 wings on the court, though, basically, and they were just in a 2-3 zone, running around, flying around, trapping. So I'm really intrigued by that, a more aggressive style, even as just a change-up, hey, out of a timeout, can we sprinkle this in, just to give teams something to think about, maybe just win one possession out of a timeout, throw teams off. So I'm really excited about the defensive potential of this team. Offensively, I think they should be very good. They're going to have to be able to space the floor specifically. Tristan's going to make shots. KJ's going to make shots. We know that. Can Julian Hammond be 37, 38% from outside? Can Luke O'Brien be 37, 38% from outside? Can those guys knock down enough shots where I talked to Luke a couple weeks ago. He says he's shooting it great in practice right now, over 50%. From 3. But can those guys knock down enough shots to spread it where defenses have to respect them? Hey, KJ's coming off this screen, but I really can't help off of Luke in the corner, and KJ gets a layup. Hey, Julian's on the weak side wing, so I really can't dig into the nail here and cut off this drive coming from the opposite side. Those 2 guys specifically, because they're going to play a lot, and then Cody Williams' jumper, I think, is going to take some time, but he's a really smart player. He's going to be able to attack closeouts. He's going to be good as a driver, as a secondary playmaker. But Luke and Julian are going to get a lot of minutes as guys that have shown that they can shoot the ball. Can they knock down enough shots from the outside? Because that will open things up for KJ and Tristan to get the buckets that we know they can. I think that's the key on offense. There's my rant for both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I agree with it. I think, both sides of the ball they've improved. I'm really excited to see how the defense changes because I don't know, you've seen the trend in positionless basketball across all levels, and it's, I don't know, this team definitely has the capabilities to do so. There's a lot of great athletes, a lot of guys with length. I don't know, it's. Like, I'm very excited to see how Cody Williams is as a defender because, like, those Williams boys are, like, they must have been made in a lab or something because I don't know how how someone who is as tall as they are has arms as long as they are. Like, because I don't know Cody's like exact wingspan, but he's like 6'7" with like a 7'2" wingspan. Like, that's insane. So yeah, defensively, I'm very excited about that. But then offensively, like you said, the shooting has improved. You know, Joe Hurlburt, I talked with him a little bit, and he can shoot the 3 ball. I don't know how much time he'll get when Eddie is back and fully healthy in the swing of things. But they implemented that 5-out that they couldn't really run last year, and I think having that backup center that you can go to that CU didn't have last year. Lawson Lovering was playing a lot of those minutes, and while Lovering was a good rebounder and played decent defense as far as protecting the rim, his offensive production was minuscule at best. And
it's a space eater on offense.
Yeah.
Skyball made me want to cry.
Yeah. So it's just, I don't know. From the big guys, it will open up. As far as that, the shooting, that opens up, and then just like, I don't know. You mentioned Cody as a second playmaker. Last year, really the only 2 guys that had the ball in their hands that were making plays, it seemed like, were KJ, Julian, and then Ethan Wright a little bit, like those were like
Ethan Wright.
like in Ethan Wright, like he was a dog. Like, I don't know, all these guys are dogs for sure. That's why they're D1 basketball players. But like, I don't know,
It was more like a family this year rather than like, sorry to interrupt you, but like I remember those guys like Jalen and Ethan and just those transfers, like they were pieces, but there's just like now I feel like there's just more of like cohesion, and like the starting 5 that we're gonna see are all guys that like grew up in the program, except Eddie. But yeah,
and it was also weird last year because I don't know, those transfers were, I don't know, they were both graduate students, Jalen and Ethan, and also from Ivy League schools, and I don't know, I think that also makes a difference when, I don't know, you're going to some of the best colleges in the nation. Not that CU isn't a good college, but I don't know. I think, I don't know. There's a little difference there and all that stuff. But the point that I was gonna make is that I'm excited to see how Cody develops as a playmaker, because from what I've seen as in practices so far and the scrimmages and things, they really are trying to get him the ball, coming off of screens and looking for him to draw attention, not even necessarily score the ball, because like you said, his jumper may take some time to develop. But with how athletic he is, how smooth his game is, how kind of polished he is for such a young age, I think he can really just create that another layer as a playmaker, so you can have multiple playmakers on the floor, but also playmakers coming from different positions, because like, I don't know, KJ Simpson can score the ball, like we said. Julian Hammond's a great shooter. And I would love to see them, if they're able to run off some screens, if they're able to get some open shots due to the creation of Cody Williams and some of these other guys, because even like Javon Hadley, like, I don't know, we only saw really glimpses of him last year before he was hurt and done for the season. So there's a lot of, I don't know, I'm really excited heading into this year with this team. So
yeah, and bouncing off what you said with Hadley, I feel like I'm really excited for him. I feel like he could be like sort of an X factor that can take the pressure off of guys like KJ, guys like Silva and Cody, if he can stay healthy. Because, I mean, I know you can take it with a grain of salt, but we did have a closed-door scrimmage against Texas, and he had 20 and I think 7 or 8 rebounds. So if he can become, a mainstay, we were kind of discussing about who would be that 5th starter, about that 2 spot. It very well may be Hadley. And if he could work off of Cody, Cody can learn some things from him, play in a more physical style, that, Cody might have a lot of tools and a lot of skills to build on, and can do a little bit of everything, but you can have those guys like Hadley, like a De Silva, if he can step up, like guys off the bench like Diop, and these really, really versatile players that can sort of fill in the gaps in Cody's game. And I said a few weeks ago, I do share that concern that Troy, you have about how we're going to be able to space the floor with our shooting with the loss of guys like Ethan and Jalen. But I feel like the team itself overall has a sense of cohesion, like you said, that is going to make our team a lot more put together, not have, maybe put forward a more consistent season, and obviously not have to end it in the second round of the NIT against Utah Valley. Like this team.
Utah Valley was nice.
Oh, I'm not disrespecting
Seton
Utah
Hall
Valley.
was nice too. They almost got away
Yeah,
with that
we won
one.
by 1 point against Seton Hall. So, but I think to get to the tournament, I think this is a team that has a ton of potential, and that could get to the tournament, have a pretty high seeding as well. It would just depend on how we fare against those teams in the Pac-12, and when we get to that tournament, who's going to be the guy that steps up as a real leader of the team. And yeah, I mean, I'm again really excited. The team looks really versatile, really a lot deeper than some of the usual teams, as long as they can stay healthy. With guys like Hadley coming off an injury, Simpson missed the end of last year. It was an illness, but still something to take note of.
I love how that illness was like, it wasn't even like an actual, like, I mean, not that mono isn't an illness, but
but he missed the whole Pac-12 tournament because
yeah,
of it.
but that was just such a funny like thing to just hear Tad say. He was just like, "Oh yeah, KJ has mono," and I was like,
Yeah, I'd be pissed. You know who's going to the tournament this year? The freaking women's team.
Oh yeah, we'll get right into that.
This is just one team. Like, you just can't not love them. And, like, what JR has created and the way that she carries herself and the way that her players carry themselves, like, each of them provide, like that, like, toughness and grit that you really need on the hardwood. It's so good to have Quay and Jay back, of course. Like, those were two women that really brought this tournament birth to life. Same with Frida Foreman. Tori and I were watching Maddie Nolan, the transfer from Michigan, shoot during practice, and like she's hitting like almost everything. Like, she's crazy from three. Like, she is going to be one of those just girls that are hard to guard. She has a great shot. Sarah Rose Smith from Mizzou, she led the SEC in rebounds, so good post presence there. It's just like there's new pieces within this team, but they have the same core that they had last year. That is going to take them far again this year.
Yeah, I'm super excited about them because, again, like you said, I feel like the transfers that we got and some of the newer players are going to be really impactful really soon. Because of, despite how hard the team played, despite how, you saw the team have all this energy, there were some, definite flaws, and I think something like shooting is something that they need to pick up. Rebounding and perimeter defense, another thing with the loss of I'm blanking.
Tiana Jones.
Tiana, yeah. That's big, and it's gonna be interesting to see who kind of steps into that role. You could see Tamia Sadler, maybe Jaden Atchison, in that spot. But yeah, I mean, the team has a lot going for it, and it's just gonna be important to carry that momentum to replicate the kind of success that last season was. And I think they have 100% capability to do so with the same core, like Quay, Vonleh, Jalen, of course, that can bring that kind of energy, the same intensity that last year really was. Because it was a magical feeling around that team.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm super excited as well. And I know that we keep saying this about our basketball teams, that we're all super excited, if you don't know. But no, I mean, yeah, last year was so phenomenal, and then just have that core all returning. It gives you that same feeling that men's team, that I don't know, I touched on it with the men's team, but better, because I don't want to disrespect, like, I don't know, those guys returning, Tristan and KJ and all those other returners are all great.
But they didn't go to the tournament.
Yeah, they didn't make the tournament. Never mind a Sweet 16. So yeah, I'm super excited, especially with. I don't know. They only lost to, I forget what the final score of that loss to Iowa was in that Sweet 16, but that was a close game the whole time. I don't know, that they.
It was a good fight.
A little bit short. I mean, yeah, it was a hell of a fight, and I don't know. It's just, I'm so excited with this team, and the new additions will seem to play well with the returners, and I'm excited about it. So.
What does the evolution look like? That's what I'm really excited to see, because we know with this many returners that have been around for so long, we know the things that they bring to the table. Like Jalen's going to get out in transition. She's going to get the drive. She's going to attack the rim. She's going to open the floor up with her dribble penetration. If Quay's playing next to Nettie Vonleh and you've got a smaller four on you, here's a post up. If another team is playing drop, sagging off to cut off Jalen's drives, hey, Quay, here's a pop. Can you knock down a shot? Hey, Frida, you're a great shooter. Here's a pin down. Here's a flare. Let's get you an open shot. Hey, Aaronette Vonleh, let's get you these post-ups, right? Like, she's going to dominate in the post. She's going to dominate on the glass. We know that is what they can do. Now, where does the next step come is really my thing. Can Nettie Vonleh add a mid-range jumper? Has Jalen added a perimeter shot, which J.R. Payne said that she has, and Jalen said that she's been working on, so I'm looking forward to seeing if Jalen can get some more shots up, maybe open the floor up a little bit. And then you bring in the transfers. You bring in Sarah Rose Smith. Now you don't have to play Quay and Nettie Vonleh together. So they call her Nettie.
I thought you were saying Eddie.
No, Nettie.
I was so confused. I thought you were confused.
No, they call her Nettie Vonleh.
I thought you were mixing Eddie Lampion.
No.
I was like, what is going on?
Nettie, not Eddie. I'm saying Nettie.
Gotcha. I wasn't here in the end.
No, you're good.
I was like, what?
But they bring in Sarah Rose Smith, so now you have some more front court depth that you can kind of rotate through as you bring back Bree McLeod. You bring back Charlotte Whitaker. They've got a ton of bigs that they can cycle through. So now Nettie getting in foul trouble, Quay getting in foul trouble, that's not as big of a deal because you have other bigs to eat minutes. You bring in Maddie Nolan, who is a shooter that they have had one great shooter in Frida Foreman. And Frida even said this when we talked to her last week. She said, I've never really played alongside somebody else that can shoot the ball like me. And they were both, when we talked to both Maddie and Frida, they were both so excited about being able to play with each other and the things that would enable them to do outside of shooting. Okay, now can I attack with some drives? Can I attack as a playmaker on the second side? And then having two shooters on the floor next to a driver as good as Jalen, what does that do? It's kind of like I said with the men's team. I was talking about Luke and Julian. Jalen's coming to the cup. Oh, Frida Foreman's in the corner. I can't help just leave her there and help off. Oh, Maddie Nolan, we're running pick and roll with Jalen and Quay. I can't dig into the roll from the weak side corner because Maddie Nolan's out there, and she's an elite shooter. She's I think it's 167 career threes that she's knocked down, top 10 in Michigan history. So I'm really excited to see that because they've never really gotten to play with two shooters on the floor at the same time like that, and I'm excited to see how that opens up the floor, in addition to seeing how those veterans evolve their games and what else they're able to bring to the table, in addition to the things that we saw last year that they all do so well.
Sorry, my boss texted me, but that was killer analysis so far.
No, that was a great way to put it, and I think those transfers and adding to your strengths and adding that depth is going to be super critical, especially, the team was arguably the most exciting sports team on campus for all of last year. And I think just to kind of build on that and kind of become one of those top-tier programs that are year in, year out in the mix for a national title, I mean, that's arguably that's definitely the end goal to this. So I think biggest thing is just to keep building. And they recently got, forget her name again, but the Massachusetts Gatorade Player of the Year that can also add to some versatility in the future. And they do have a scrimmage in just a few days or an exhibition against Adams State. So it'll be nice to see them on the court again. I'm really excited. The next time we'll be in this room is when they'll already have played. So we'll get a little bit of a sample size of what we could expect from both teams.
Yeah, I'm really excited. The biggest thing with the women's team is I'm excited to see what their defense looks like because I don't know, we've talked about.
You read my mind, Oliver.
Yeah, I mean, because with what you guys have talked about, you brought up the shooting, you brought up I don't know, obviously with the returners, they have offense. Like it seems very scary to me, like just thinking about the possibilities that could occur on offense, like running that pick and roll with I don't know. You could throw in Quay, you could throw in Aaronette as a screener, but then, I don't know, You have Jalen as a primary ball handler, and you have, I don't know, shooters and Frida and Maddie Nolan on the wing or in the corner or something. Like, that's the ability, the many options that can just come out of a simple pick and roll with those players on the offensive side of the ball is like, I don't know, it's just so exciting. And so will the defensive side of things step up and be able to match this offensive production, at least in a way that can push them past those harder teams like Iowa? Because, like, I don't know, it was really just, I wish I could pull more examples last year, but I don't know. It felt like there were some times that, like, I don't know, at least in the Iowa game, maybe they just got, like, overpowered here and there. Like, they just didn't have someone who could just go up and just shut someone down.
It's hard to guard Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, that's kind of, I don't know. That goes back to what you said earlier with the basketball phrase of, good defense, better offense. So
yeah, I mean, I'll just say no team in the country has someone that can just shut down Caitlin Clark.
Oh yeah, I don't mean like shut down, but I'm just like, I just mean the offensive side of things is, we all know it's going to be there. We know that is going to be the strong suit with this team. And so where is that defensive side of things that we haven't necessarily seen, like, spark in the past? Where is that going to come into play, and how is, I don't know, I believe that can really be the big key to answering that question of where does the evolution come? Where does the defense, I think, will set the floor of this team?
Yeah, I think just one more thing I'll add is how is that, what is the passing of the torch from, like, Jalen to the next, like, big leader of the team going to be like? Who's going to really step into that role as someone? Because this is most likely the last years we're going to see Jalen and Quay. So it'll be really great to see them again and see them, take control of the team, run the offense, and on defense kind of spearhead a really well coached and super energetic group. But if looking forward to the future in the long term, it's gonna be interesting to see who really steps up at guard and in the front court, because of how impactful like it would be a big shoes to fill with Jalen and Quay.
It's gonna be interesting because you touched on the defense. The defense was the strength of the team last year, but now you lose Tayana Jones, who was huge on the weak side for that team as a shot blocker, as just a deterrent in the passing lanes, just using her length, and as a switchable defender on the outside. As someone that there's not a ton of players in women's college basketball that are as tall as Tayana Jones is, and can step out and guard guards, or has the length to deter bigs in the post. So where does that come from? Because you have two elite, really, really elite point of attack defenders in Jalen Sherrod and Kendall Wetta. They're going to pick up full court. They're just going to be so disruptive on the ball. But then when you get into a pick and roll game, what does that look like? Because they're not going to be as switchable. And I think that this is another place where Sarah Rose Smith can really help. She can come in and give a different look as a more switchable big that maybe Nettie Vonleh or Quay Miller is not. They've played a lot of drop with those two, or they show them at the level. But then now, digging in from the weak side, if you can't switch, that's no longer Tayana Jones, who was really, really excelled in that role. So what does that look like? Do we see some more Tamia Sadler in that role to give us in minutes where we're struggling defensively, maybe to give us more of a versatile look on that end? And then I talked about how excited I was about the Frida Form and Maddie Nolan lineups. How do those lineups guard, especially if you're playing those two with a big who is not as adept at coming out and switching like Nettie Vonleh? Can that group hold up defending on the perimeter? Do you play Sarah Rose Smith a lot with that pairing to kind of help out with that? So really intriguing. I think that the potential's obviously still there on defense when you have two guards that guard as well as Jalen and Kendall do, and are that disruptive to the opposing team's backcourts. There's a lot of potential still on the defensive end, and JR's built a great culture of defensive basketball. They play really hard on that end always. Even Frida Foreman is not as naturally gifted a defender as someone like Jalen, but she, on that end last year, she makes a ton of plays just off of effort, playing really hard, mentally putting herself in the right spots. That's why I like the addition of 2 veteran transfers, because they've played enough college basketball where, hey, I know I have to be dug in right here. They're gonna put themselves in the right spots defensively, so I think that'll help. But losing Tayana Jones is huge on that end, so I'm curious to see kind of what the lineups look like, because they've got a lot of different ways that they can go. And then if you go with more of an offensive lineup, how do you still survive defensively, or vice versa?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think with my defense, with the comments on the defensive side of things, I think it's this speaks to how good the team is and how good I think the team will be, and the expectations and standards surrounding this team. When I'm talking about like their defense, like I'm really thinking about like, I don't know, how they're going to be guarding, not just like some regular season game, but how are they going to be guarding the Iowas, the LSUs, the UConns, all these just all these top programs, because I really think that is where this Colorado team is going to end up, and I think that they have a chance to do something special, and that's like, I don't know, where those defensive things that you talked about, and my like slight concerns with that, though, that's where they kind of step up, because I don't know, it'll just be interesting. I think this team is capable of being better than they were last year.
They're going to get a damn good litmus test opening night.
Yeah, LSU in Vegas.
That is going to be – it'll be a good measuring stick, though. That's a good, like, hey, here's what we can do well against the team. I mean, that's the class of college basketball. You return Angel Reese from the national champion. You add Haley Van Lith, the best transfer in the country. That's – they're the number 1 team in the country, rightfully so. And I think it's going to be good for CU at the beginning of the season to be like, hey, these are the things we're doing well. These are the lineups. These are the pairings. These are the groups. These are the different schemes, the different tactics that are going to work, that we succeed, that we are comfortable with. And then here are the different areas where maybe we need, like I mentioned, all the bigs. Angel Reese is the best rebounder in the country. Can they hold up on the glass? They should. That should be one of their strengths, especially in Pac-12 play. But there's no better litmus test for how you're going to be on the boards than playing against Angel Reese, who just dominates on the glass. So things like that. I'm glad that they took on that challenge, that they're playing that game, because I think it's going to say a lot about where they really are. And I think that will benefit them and give them more of a narrow focus as to, hey, we're here, and here's what we're trying to get to.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I can agree with that. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like we have too much more to add as far as sports. Of course, other sports are still going on. We have our club sports. Club baseball, club hockey.
I think the biggest upset of the weekend, there wasn't too much going on this past weekend, obviously, with the bye, but the club baseball team actually lost 2 games in a row to Colorado State after, they started 6-0 on the fall season, but it's fall.
Yeah.
It really doesn't really matter until we get to March and April with the spring team.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that, though.
But yeah, looking at the other divisions, 1 sports, soccer is doing their thing, but I will have to rival your biggest upset of, I don't know, maybe this past weekend.
I completely forgot.
The volleyball team upset number 17 Arizona State for their second 3-0 sweep in a row, kind of getting on track after having a little bit of a losing streak.
Yeah,
some tough opponents.
They had a really rough patch, but they didn't drop a set to either Arizona school, so it's really promising to see them as they, both soccer and volleyball kind of winding down until they're, if they get into a postseason tournament, something like that.
Yeah. Before we end it off, is there any big things that you guys have on the horizon? Anything that you're looking out for, or just kind of same old, and just anything you want to plug?
Plug my YouTube channel. Follow me on Twitter, Nikki Edwards with 3 S's at the end. I got a cat. I'm super excited about my cat. I've just been moving and grooving, man. Post-grad's been an interesting time, especially in the sports industry, but luckily things just played out really well with Dion coming here and my other opportunities. And yeah, follow Yahoo Sports if you want, I still get paid either way.
Yeah, Nikki's big time. Go follow Nikki. If you ever see Yahoo Sports post how many Wembies make up the Eiffel Tower, you know who to blame.
Yeah, that's my creative direction is somewhat listened to, but we have to prioritize him right now because he's Wemby,
Yep.
Dude, that man, he's fun to watch too.
He is fun to watch.
I'm excited to watch him.
I'm so excited to watch Wemby
play ball. But yeah, I'm on Twitter. All of my stuff is posted on Twitter. Just my name, Troy Finnegan. I started a TikTok series, a film review. So I'm reviewing a certain aspect from every Buffs football game every Monday on TikTok. My username is Troy Finnegan with an extra N at the end. I couldn't quite get 3 extra letters like her, but I'll be doing basketball stuff with that series as well when basketball season gets going in the next couple of weeks. So,
Troy's the best.
That's about it.
Troy's the best. He's helped me out a lot because I worked 2 jobs and I was kind of struggling a lot working both jobs. And Troy came in and he knows ball better than anyone I know. More than me, surprisingly. Wow. I know.
Nikki, you know ball.
Yeah, and he was our top editor last year.
Yeah.
For all the articles we wrote.
Look at, we're all sports editors.
Yeah,
it's so
the year before
sweet.
That was Nikki, so
I know.
Yeah,
I'm
the last 3 sports editors.
All in one room.
Yeah,
Generational.
Had a blast talking ball with you guys, though. Thank you.
Yeah,
for having me.
Yeah,
It was a
you
great time.
guys got a good thing going here. Keep it going.
Yeah, thank you guys. And I mean, it all started with you guys. You're the ones that have kept this thing going, and you guys were editors, which is the writing aspect, but in the other aspects is, I don't know, you had a podcast last year for a little bit.
I had vibes. I didn't even have a podcast.
Great vibes.
But you guys still contributed to the live show and all those good things, and what Scope of Sports has been about for the past few years, and just keeping this club going. But yeah, I think we're kind of ready to finish it up, and luckily for our viewers, I do have the capability to put up graphics, so you don't have to make sure you find their names and add all the extra letters at the end of usernames and whatnot.
If you can fit 3 S's on in the text chain, then you'll get Nikki's down.
we got y'all.
But yeah, no, I think that's it from us. So I'm Oliver Hayes.
I'm Harrison Simeon.
And yeah, we were joined by Nikki Edwards, Troy Finnegan. I don't know, this is our first time having special guests, so I apologize for the wacky outro and intro, but
Hey.
That's what having guests all about.
yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, shaking hands. Here for the
Post-game wrap-up.
vibes. Yeah.
But yeah, we're here for Scope of Sports, and as always, you heard it here first. Peace.